He
And I'm
sees
like,
through the veil. He sees through the
it.
veil of
He
darkness.
sees through it.
He
everyone.
knows that something's wrong. Why is that? Let's see. We'll probably find out in the next episode.
Yeah, but also the issue is Ender's like, well, what happened after he ran into the freaking battleship?
He blew up, Ender. He blew up.
Yeah.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Flip the Scripts. I'm Ankit and Madhira.
And I'm Stephen Nieman.
And this is a podcast all about adaptations, taking a look at original source material and the film or TV adaptation from the original source material. This week, we are talking about Ender's Game.
Ooh, yeah.
Woo!
So this was suggested by our very good friend, Ant Cervellin. Thank you so much for suggesting it. He listens to our podcast every week while he works out at the gym. So when he, because he's been working out a lot. So good on you, Ant.
You should run more or faster or lift more weight. Like, keep doing what you're doing, man. I don't know what he's doing as a workout.
He does it all, you know. All.
I don't know what day he's listening to it.
Fair. But thank you so much for suggesting Ender's Game. It's a great book. I really enjoyed it. So, Ankit.
It is very fun.
Tell us about the fun facts. Who's the book by?
Lovely.
Who's the movie by? All that stuff.
So, Ender's Game was originally published on January 15th, 1985. However, that is when the book was officially published. Originally, the book was a short story, and it was published in August of 1977 in an issue of Analog Science Fiction and Fact. The author is Orson Scott Card, and it also won multiple awards. It won the Best Novel Award at the Nebula Awards. The Nebula Award, which is the Best Novel Award in 1985, and it won the Hugo Award in the genre of science fiction and fantasy. And it stemmed 4 sequels afterwards. So
Wow.
It was a huge success as a book.
I didn't realize it came out in 1985. That is news to me.
Yeah, I didn't realize that either. I was quite surprised. Lovely. So the IMDb rating for this film, which came out in 2013, so it came out years after the book was originally published, and later on we'll talk more about why it was so long after and everything that led into creating this adaptation. Because in my iteration of the book, there was a wonderful note from the author for a good portion of the book, and he just got to talk about his journey with the story as well. So we'll talk more about that probably in the next episode. But the film adaptation came out in 2013, and boy, did it have a lot of superstars in it, including Harrison Ford and a very young Haley Steinfeld. Haley Steinfeld. It had Ben Kingsley, Viola Davis, as well as some other fairly well-known actors as well. It was directed by Gavin Hood, and the writers were Gavin Hood and Orson Scott Card.
Yeah.
And it also had one win for an award. I couldn't figure out which award it was. Here it is. It's a key art. It's a key art award. The winner for best display for its standee, multi-dimensional standee with spectacular motion and lights. That's the award that it won.
Okay.
Yeah. But it was rated a 6.6 on IMDb. On Rotten Tomatoes, the audience score was a 65%, and the critic score was 62%. So all roughly in the same ballpark in terms of ratings.
When the critics and the audience agree, That's the scary part.
Yeah.
I don't know if I agree with the critics or the audience, but on a negative way. But we'll see once we get into the film.
We'll see. I understand why it might be like that, but also I understand why it might not be like that.
Mm-hmm. Cool. So, shall we
Cool.
start? Let's hop
Let's
into the
get going.
I'll tell you a little bit about Ender's Game, a little backstory, if we will, because it's a first episode of a series, and I always do that. We haven't had a first episode of a series in a long while.
It has been a bit.
Yeah. So, Ender's Game is a story about a kid named Andrew Ender Wiggin, and he grows up in this society that is future America, not ran the way we run the American government. We understand that it's in the near distant future. And he's a third child, which is a thing that is illegal in this country, is to have a third child. But he's been petitioned by the government to have a third child, and he's in this program, this special program that is leading to something, leading to being the commander of an army, possibly. That is all that he knows starting from the first chapter. That's all that we know as readers going into it. And we know that there's these aliens that attacked the world twice, called the Buggers. So there's been 2 invasions, and we're really worried about a third invasion coming.
Yeah.
That is the book summary, by the way. So Andrew goes to school, and he learns some stuff, meets some friends, and things happen. So we're going to now get into the film. Did the film adapt it correctly or not?
Let's find out. That's what we're here to do.
Cool. So it starts with a quote. Now, the quote, I didn't get the whole quote because I'm not Ankit on his other show, Post Finale, where I'm really good at catching every single quote that Ankit does on his show. I admire him for that.
It's fun. It's an entertaining thing, but I can no longer watch anything without having to judge it. And sometimes that's a curse.
In summary, the quote said, I understand my enemy enough. I learned to love them. And I thought this was an interesting quote. Now, this is quoted by Ender Wiggin, which, yes, I think he does say that in the book at one point, but it's not that important. But I guess they decided to make the quote because that's the story they wanted to tell with the book so far. So I don't mind the quote, is what I'm trying to say.
Fair enough. And also, it's kind of true.
Yeah. But then we go straight to a backstory, and this is where the movie kind of goes off the rails a bit. So the backstory talks about how the Formics are attacking Earth, and I was like, who the are the Formics?
Apparently, they couldn't use the name Buggers?
Which, okay. And then it says that the great hero, Mazer Rackham, sacrificed himself to win. And I was kind of like, in Earth's atmosphere. Now, for those who have read the book, I'm already having issues with this because it looks like this is the first invasion. Because for those who don't know, the Buggers invaded Earth in the first invasion. And the second invasion, the fight was in space. And Mazer Rackham fought in the second invasion, not the first invasion.
Yeah. Also, the other issue that I had is that they said that this was 50 years ago. In the book, it all happened 100 years ago.
Yeah, a long time ago. Like, it's supposed to be like, we're worried they're going to come back for a third time.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. So, we cut to Ender Wiggin, and he's playing a game, and the people are really mad he won. Like, everyone around him's like, how could Ender win? And it also cuts to Harrison Ford and Viola Davis's character talking about him while watching him. Now, this is a really fun thing that I wish was used more, because in the book, at the start of every chapter, you catch in with Harrison Ford's character, who is Graf, and Viola Davis's Davis's character, who is Anderson, as they discuss Ender's growth throughout the book. It's a really cool way to like have a third party aspect on Ender throughout the whole book.
Yeah.
But I think because they
It's
only have like
very
1 to
interesting.
2 of these scenes, I think I lose that kind of fun thing about the chapters that I liked.
I think one thing that we need to understand though, and it's not necessarily a spoiler, ladies and gentlemen,
Mhm.
but in the book takes place over 5 years.
Yeah, he starts at 6.
There's a 5-year span.
6 years. Isn't he 12 by the time?
He's 11 or 12, so 5 or 6 years. I'm blanking on how old he is at the end.
And
He's 11 or 12.
It goes
by the end of
longer
it.
because the last chapter goes into like 20 years in the future, doesn't it?
Yeah. The majority of the book happens over a 5 to 6 year span, and then we jump years after that, and in the last chapter, and it kind of tells like, all right, what happens to Ender. Not like that much after, but like definitely like a few years down the line of the climax of the end of the book. So like one thing we do need to note, and I think it's interesting, is like obviously you can't do that for the film because otherwise you would have to cast multiple kids to play Ender.
I disagree. I think it could have been done. I think there's a really interesting way that you can do it. I think it was a decision of saving money.
I mean, yeah, that makes sense too. But like that's one thing that like we can't get that mad at in terms of like certain things just because like, all right, cool, like they have decided to like take a 5-year story or a 6-year story and condense it down to a year.
3 weeks. Not even a year. It feels like 3
more
weeks.
Or less. It feels like maybe 2 months at most.
So this lady comes into the room and she tells Ender, we're going to take your monitor out. And he's like, am I out of the program? And he's really worried he's out of the program. We don't really understand what this program is from a film perspective. We understand what it is from a book perspective at this point, but we don't understand what it is from a film perspective. Also, it's really interesting because they're like, he's playing games and all these things where I don't think it's games in the when he has the monitor. I don't think it's like he is literally in a program where he's just learning stuff. I don't think there's like
people are just able to monitor his movements, his emotions and stuff. Like that's what the monitor is. Ladies and gentlemen, if you don't know what we're talking about, the monitor is just like a chip that's embedded in the back of their neck. So
the doctor takes him to the hospital to take it out and he's like, don't worry, it won't hurt a bit. And I'm like, doctors always say that before it hurts. And they take it out and he screams in agony and pain. Wiggin is then walking to leave because he's, being kicked out of the program, he assumes. And then he gets pushed into a classroom by the guy he beat in the game and he's being bullied. And so this does happen in the book. Ender is bullied by this kid named Stilson. But the thing is, it happens later. So Ender takes his monitor out. He's taken out of the program. He is sent home. He's sent back to regular school with his sister and brother. So his sister Valentine, his older sister Valentine, and his older brother Peter. And he is sent back to this school, and he's bullied by this kid named Stilson. And Stilson, and he's still, the thing is, he is still attending that school even with the monitor. I don't think he could. No, yeah, that's true. Because Stilson couldn't bully him as much because he had the monitor in.
Yeah, like it was still the same school.
Yeah. So we'll assume that guy is Stilson for all fact of the matter. They don't give him a name. We'll call him Bully A, maybe, but Stilson.
Cool.
And they fight. He goes to fight him. And basically Ender takes I think it's like a bony fish or an old bone. It's a fossil maybe.
Sure, something. It's a fossil of some sort. They're in a science classroom.
And he uses it to beat the heck out of the kid.
Yeah.
And he threatens the other ones. He's like, leave me alone now, and all this stuff. And I'm like, yeah, so in the book, Ender does fight Stilson, but Ender, I think, kicks him in the groin.
Nope.
No,
He
no,
just
that's the other.
punches.
He
He just
punches him.
punches the crap out of him.
He
Just
punches the crap out of him, and the thought process is he'll never do this to me again, and I got to make sure nobody else will bully me again.
But Steven, like, you have to understand, he says this later. You can't fault the film for having to tell us this information later because we don't live in Ender's head in the film.
I'm not faulting the film for that. I'm more faulting the film that I'm like, he didn't need the weapon to deal damage to
Whatever,
this kid.
He beat the guy up. Move on. Stop being so nitpicky.
This is the show, Ankit. The whole show is nitpick. You know this. We've been way more nitpicky. You've seen our Hunger Games episodes.
I had a lot of issues with the Hunger Games.
So, cut to Ender talking to Valentine, trying to say he's not like Peter. The usual argument. Whenever Ender had an anger problem in the book, or any times he, kind of does anything violent, he's like, he tries to not be his brother, because his brother, Peter, is a very violent person.
Mm-hmm.
Peter then comes in and says, let's play buggers versus human. And that's when I'm like, wait a minute. So you can't call the Formix buggers, but you can play buggers versus humans?
Yes.
Because I swear
it makes perfect sense.
I think in the film he did say buggers, unless I misheard him and I thought he said it and he said Formix.
I'm pretty sure he said Formix, but I like your version better where he says buggers and just nobody cared.
Okay, cool. I was watching that moment and my brain went, what did I watch? Okay, moving on. And basically Valentine's like, I'm gonna go tell mom, and she goes to try to find mom and dad, and Peter threatens to kill both of them, and it's the same as it is in the book. It's a very well done scene. It's very similar to the book, and it doesn't feel it. I was like, hey, this gives me some really good hope for the adaptation.
Cool.
And then Graf and Anderson show up. And they show up at the front door in the middle of dinner, and they let his parents know what he did to the bullies, and they kind of admonish him for fighting the bully. They ask Ender, well, why'd you do it? He's like, I wanted to make sure they could never do it again. That was the whole point.
Fair enough.
And that gave Graf enough foresight to be like, I want Ender in the program.
Right.
To continue the program without the monitor. Taking the monitor out was the last bit of the program, apparently, and you need to see how a kid reacts without the monitor before they're allowed to continue.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
interesting thing, but I mean, it's the same as the book, so cool. Fine.
One thing that's not really explained in the film, but we can talk about here, is Peter and Valentine were also in the program, and they weren't allowed to continue after the monitor stage. They just failed out.
Yeah.
Peter, what they would say about Peter, and I don't think it's said, Peter was too aggressive and too angry to continue, and Valentine was too soft. So Ender's kind of the in-between of both of them, which is what Graf likes, which is what allowed them to have a third child. So the government actually paid for Ender to be born.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's kind of because, like, the government recognized that, like, the kids are very intelligent, but, like, one is just too violent, one is just too soft. Like,
yeah, exactly.
There needs to be a middle.
Graf then has a conversation with Ender outside, and he explains he needs children's minds and the need for Formix to leave them alone, and we're going to go to battle school. And I get it. I like this whole Harrison Ford. I like Harrison Ford as Graf. I think he's the best casting choice for Graf. So, but yeah, he just kind of explains. Graf told Peter. So then Graf tells Ender the difference between him and his siblings, which is what we just explained. And then he's like, okay, we're going to go to launch. So Now Ender is what is known as a launchy. So he's going to go be a launchy. So
Pretty
they're
much it just
launching,
means that he's a newbie.
yeah, so they're launching off to the battle school. And he goes in to meet everyone, and he meets Bean in his launch crew. And
Yay, we meet Bean significantly earlier in the film.
I was like, what? So
For context,
Bean,
ladies and gentlemen, Bean doesn't show up until the middle of the book. And yeah, that's all I'm going to say now. Otherwise, like, it might spoil some stuff later.
Oh, well, I was just going to say Bean is a launchy, but not on Ender's launchy group.
This is what I'm saying. Like, Bean shows up about halfway into the book.
Yeah.
Like, so he's a launchy, but like halfway into the book.
My other question was, where's Bernard?
Nah.
So then they take off.
I mean, he does show up.
Yeah, but then they take off and they all feel weightlessness, and one student pukes, which is true in the book. And then Ender gets singled out by Graf, so the rest of the launch can hate him.
Which is very accurate to the book.
We then land in battle school. So in the launch, the thing that was cut out of the film from the book was, so there's this kid named Bernard, and Bernard is in his launch group, and he got mad that Graf kind of singled Ender out as the smart one out of the whole group, and Bernard is the dumb one. So Bernard and Ender actually fight in the zero gravity spaceship, and he ends up breaking Bernard's arm.
Yeah.
On accident, I think, because he doesn't realize the strength of zero gravity.
Yeah, he didn't mean to. He just kind of like pushed off of him, and that was it.
Which like ended the fight, but also ended Bernard's arm. I don't know. I think the fight would have been interesting to keep in because there's a lot of times in the book that Ender is bullied, and I understand maybe they're like, we had this bully and we're gonna have bullying later. We don't need this one. But I just think it's the adversity of Ender that shows that he keeps coming back. That's really interesting in the book. I think taking this out lessens the character a bit.
I think this fight wasn't necessarily needed, so I understand why they cut it out, because we see that he got bullied earlier. We see what's going to happen soon. Like, you know, and we can already tell that like he doesn't like being singled out, because he and Graf have that whole conversation where he's like, why'd you single me out? Mm-hmm. So like, you know, we can tell that like, you know, things aren't necessarily going great for him. He's not enjoying what's happening. But yeah, I don't actually feel like that fight was needed. I think other bits later were more needed than this fight.
I think my issue with it is in his launchy group, he doesn't feel singled out enough. Like, I don't actually get that feeling in the movie that he's like Ender and everyone else and Bernard's group and all that stuff. And I think that's my issue. Like, if you're going to cut the fight, you still have to keep the idea of him being singled out, right?
I had the similar issue where I was like, he's more singled out, but like we don't see him being as singled out. But I don't think you needed the fight to show that he's singled out. I think you can show him being singled out in a different way.
Yeah. So they show up at battle school, and he talks to Graf. He's like, why'd you single me out? Like Ankit just said. And then they tell him, we need a Napoleon or a Caesar. And then he's like, well, Napoleon failed when he attacked Russia because he was a megalomaniac. And Caesar failed and his best friends killed him. And this is in a chapter starter. I think Anderson is the one who tells Graf the failing of Napoleon and Caesar. But I like Ender having those lines.
It is fun because it's just like, like Ender is smart. Like Ender has studied.
Yeah, I just also think it's really funny that it's like Napoleon and Caesar are very good leaders, and they did die very inconsequential deaths.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
Wiggin then shows up in his launchy room, and he sees that there's an open bed, and it's at the front, and it's And he's like, "Oh, great! I wanted this bed." And he kind of shows because they left him the bad bed, if you will, the one that's at the front of the door.
Mm-hmm.
My other thing, the way I read the book, and maybe I'm wrong, I thought it was the only single bed that was at the front of the door, and the rest were bunks.
No, you're wrong.
Cool, that's fine. I'll be wrong because I didn't think someone slept above him in the first cabin he was in.
I'm pretty sure every cabin was the same, and it was just all bunk beds, and they left him the bottom one closest to the door.
Fair. I thought it was different for launchy groups, and I'll explain in a second why I thought that. But so then Wiggin opens his locker, which, you know, is a really cool. I think it's like the face reader, and it's technology. It's sci-fi. And then Dap shows up, and I was like, "That's not Dap. That's the guy playing Dap." I was very like excited when he showed up, and then I was like.
Yeah.
And then I was like, "Oh, it's a drill sergeant. It's not really Dap because Dap in the book. I don't know. I like Dap in the book better. He called himself Mother, and I thought that was very entertaining. And there's just a lot to that character that I got lost in that one speech. And I'm like,
Yeah,
all you had to do was add a sentence.
The one thing that you're mainly missing with Dap in the film compared to Dap in the book is just that, like, they're very similar characters, but the one key bit that you're missing is that Dap in the book also does care about these launchies and tells them, if you have a problem, you can come talk to me. Kind of deal.
So,
like, yeah.
Then he's like, "Your yellow lights will lead you to the next class." And this is where I'm like, colors were really important in the book. Each group has different colors, and usually it's a combination of 2 to 3 colors, I believe.
3 colors.
3 colors.
Sometimes the colors might be the same. Like, it might be green, green, blue, but it's always a 3-color sequence.
It's a 3-color system. That's what I meant. It's 2 to 3 colors, but a 3-color system. But, like, because there's so many different classes and launchy groups on this battle school that you have to do it that way, they really simplified the battle school by having everybody be one color.
I think that they simplified the battle school, but the way that they simplify it, I actually have a problem with it later, of the simplification of it. But, like, for me, I didn't even think of it that way. I was just like, wild that their 3-color segment is just yellow, yellow, yellow. I guess that's what was open today. Like, that was my entire thought process, was that they just got assigned yellow, yellow, yellow. So instead of saying yellow, 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 they just said, "Oh yeah, follow the yellow lights." Like,
isn't there launchy group yellow, black, yellow, if I'm remembering correctly, like in the book?
I think so.
I knew it was like another color between the yellow. I knew yellow was correct.
Yeah, maybe it was just cheaper to just make it yellow, yellow, yellow instead of yellow, black, yellow. And they were like, you know what? Okay. It's such a minor detail that, like, we don't really care.
But the minor details make it. So then they go to class and they watch the video of an invasion. This is film only. But they watch the invasion of where Rackham killed the mothership. So it's the same footage from the beginning of the film where they said this was 50 years ago. And they called this the first invasion of the Formic. So I was like, so there's been no second invasion? So they've cut out the second invasion of the story of the film completely. So this is not the third time, if you will.
Yeah.
So also, like Ankit said, it's 50 years in the film version compared to 100 years in the book version, I think.
Yeah.
So while they're watching the video, everyone else is like cheering. They're like, yeah. And then Ender's there like, this is a bunch of propaganda and bullshit.
He sees through the veil. He sees through the veil of darkness.
He sees through it.
He knows that something's wrong. Why is that? Let's see. We'll probably find out in the next episode.
Yeah, but also the issue is Ender's like, well, what happened after he ran into the freaking battleship?
Like, he blew up, Ender. He blew up.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Then they get taken to the battle room, and they need to figure out how they are in a 0G environment. The battle room is cool. I don't know. I envisioned it very differently in my head. When I saw it in the film version, I was like, "Oh, it feels very
How did you
plain
envision
almost to
it
me."
in your head?
I saw this like really cool LED structure, these kind of other than the stars being there that they can grab onto, I saw them a little differently as like not these like metal spheres, but like something that close to it. But I saw like a lot more just a lot more things for them to dodge through in zero G. Just it felt less open in my head in the book.
But they have that in terms of those cubes.
No, I know, but
And
those are the
how
stars.
yeah, but those are the stars. That's all in the book that it ever describes are there. It never says that there's anything other than the stars.
No, I get it. It just felt a lot more, I don't know, mythical in the book. I don't know. It didn't feel. I didn't. It's like when you read Harry Potter, right? And you read about Hogwarts, and you're like, it's a giant castle. It's an impressive giant castle, but it's a giant castle. And then you see it in Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone for the first time. You are in awe because they kind of just set it up to be this amazing thing. In this film, I don't feel like the battle room was set up to be this amazing thing, nor did I care.
No, but I do think that like the battle room is still fairly accurate to what it is in the book.
Fair. It just had more mythic to it in the book. Does
That's
that make
because
sense?
they talked about it significantly more before we got to it in the book, whereas they didn't talk about it in the
Yeah.
film much. They just kind of were like, by the way, here's the battle room. Haha.
So Wiggins gets brought to the front to go in first, and I'm like, of course. And is told to push off and aimlessly push off. And so he's aimlessly floating in the air from star to star. And then the kid who threw up joins him, and it turns out to be Ally. And I really like, is it Ally or
It's a
Ally?
lie.
It is
It's a
Ally,
lie.
yeah. I
Yeah.
like Ally. He's a good character. I thought the kid who played him did a really good job.
I'm not gonna lie, I couldn't tell the difference between the two of them, so I thought that that was Bean. But all right, cool. Never mind. Then my note doesn't make sense.
Oh, it looked like the kid who threw up, though. I knew it wasn't Bean yet.
To me, it looked like it was Bean.
Oh, what was your problem with it? If it was Bean,
It was meant to be a lie.
I thought it was a lie. So maybe I'm wrong, and I was like, it's a lie because I was like, because the book, I was like hoping that it was, and maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah.
Maybe you're right. So either way, it needed to be a lie. We both agree on that.
Yeah, it needed to be a lie. But like the other thing that like we don't see, and this is where my issue comes in,
Mm-hmm.
is that like we don't see in between here, in between the launchy group coming up to
Mm-hmm.
this point, we don't see Ender being isolated at all.
No.
Whereas this moment, when he and Eli kind of start figuring out the zero gravity, like Eli is technically a guy from the other group that, like, what is the guy's name? Bender? Bernard.
Bernard.
Bernard's
Bender.
group. He's part of like his like little posse, and then Eli breaks away and like starts like figuring this out with Ender because they're the only two smart ones, and
Of
they're able to
course.
figure it out. And so it's like, okay, cool. Like that starts to be Ender's way in and slowly starts breaking into the group, slowly starts getting accepted. But we haven't seen, other than him being singled out one time, we
Yeah.
haven't seen Ender be isolated at all. And that was my issue with the isolation, is then this moment didn't hit because we don't see the isolation.
The other thing that I thought was really interesting, and I think kind of adds to the failure of this moment, and I don't know if you would agree on this, but in the there's a rule that the launchy group, that there's going to be a leader of the launchies group, and the bunk that Ender is sleeping in is supposed to be the leader's bunk. So they're all supposed to vote on a leader, and they haven't yet. And Ender is afraid that it's going to be Bernard because Bernard is liked by everyone and Ender is disliked by everyone. And Ender, of course, and Bernard don't agree because he broke Bernard's arm and all this stuff. So I think there's a lot of like interpersonal politics of the Launchy group that is cut out of the film.
Yeah.
But a lie is there, and the first thing they ask is they try to figure out where is down. So they're like, oh, the enemy's door is down, which yeah, that is true. They do, Ender does figure that out in the book. I think it's a lot later in training sessions, I believe, not in this moment. But fine,
Whatever.
and they both then try to figure out the gun, and him and Eli shoot each other in the leg, and Ender gets him to freeze him completely. So Launchies don't play the game, is what is later explained, but he explains the game and the points to each of them. And I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. The points are new. I've never heard the points. It was like a headshot is 10 points or something, and a body shot is 5 or...
That was new because all that mattered in the book was how many got frozen. So how many got hit and how many didn't get hit. That's all that mattered. It didn't matter where you hit them. It just mattered if they were hit or not. That's all that mattered in the book.
Also, if you made it through the door of the other team.
Well, that's how the game ended.
And you
right?
needed 5 unfrozen members to get through it.
Was it 5 in the book?
Yeah, it's 5 because you need 4 on each corner of the door and then 1 to go through.
Okay.
And then launch. Yeah, but then we cut to Ender, and Ender's writing letters. So he's writing letters to Valentine, and this is an interesting thing. Now we know in the book he did write letters to Valentine, but they never got delivered. So I almost don't see a point of him writing them in the film because they both
felt
wrote
like
letters
a
to each
cop
other.
out for what happens soon.
I agree. He talks about all his classes, and he does physical attacks class. So he has this physical attack class where he learns how to fight. Now he does take this class in the book, but a lot later. Because he's worried about bullies. Like he takes it, and it's not supposed to be everyone taking the class. It's just supposed to be him and maybe a few other people. We never see who's in the class.
It's kind of like an elective.
Exactly. So we cut to Graf, letting them know he might be able to promote all of them and how none of these people are your friends. So Graf is already trying to separate the Launchy group again.
Mm-hmm.
And which is, I'm like, Graf doesn't need to. They've kind of have been separated, but I get it. Also, apparently some people have graduated or been sent home. One thing they haven't explained yet about the battle school is when you graduate, you either go on to commander school or another school. There's like 2 other schools, I believe, other than the commander school. Or you get iced. Now, if you can get iced early or you can get iced at any point. And icing means that you get sent back to Earth. So you're sent back to Earth and you lose. You're out of the program. You've lost.
Mm-hmm.
It's something they haven't really explained in the film at all. They do talk about it, but they haven't explained it. It's that thing that Harry Potter famously did in the films where they expected their audience to have read the book, so it's easier to explain things.
Yeah.
And I think it's a mistake on adapter's part. Whenever we do our adaptation, Ankit, I think we can't make that mistake.
I mean, like, I would love to not make that mistake. Sometimes it's easier said than done.
Exactly. So, and Graf also lets him know, stop writing letters to family. You can't contact them anyway. And and then Dap comes in. He's like, is there a problem with that, Wiggin? And Wiggin keeps asking him questions. He's like, shut up, Wiggin. And I'm like, this is not Dap. Dap would never yell at anybody for asking a question. It just felt like grueling him for no reason. And the characters, I just don't get it.
Sure.
And then Dap leaves, and then Ender tells the whole group, "Let's go to sleep," because
Oh,
Ender's in charge.
sure, Ender's in charge. Fine. I had an issue with this because Dap yells at him to drop and give him 20. And me
Oh,
being me, I
did you count the
counted.
push-ups?
And, while he's doing the push ups, Dap yells, do 20 more.
So
Now,
40.
Ender did the original 20, but he never did the other 20. And this Dap doesn't seem like the Dap that would be willing to forgo the other 20. So, Ender, you didn't keep up your end of the deal.
You did not. You did not do 20 more push-ups. You should have done it.
No, you should have done 20 more push ups. And on that note, we should take a snack break and we will be right back.
Yeah. Hi, this is Steven. Thank you for watching Co-op Forge. If you like our content, wish to support our editing staff or all, please subscribe to our Patreon and link down below. You'll get bonus footage and many other fun activities out of it. In our description, you'll also find links to our social media, where we'll post about our new episodes. Flip the Scripts is every Friday, Seattle Across the Pond is every other Thursday, and Post Finale is posted every Wednesday. Thank you for watching. Now back to the main episode. So then, we're back in class. So we're back from the snack break. Hope you guys had a good snack break. So we're back in class, and the teacher asked about rocket science to Ender, and he's like, Bean or Eli are better at rocket science than him. And Bernard is there as well. Now we get introduced to Bernard way later in the movie. I think we're like 30 minutes into the film, and now we meet Bernard, and he's in class with
Sure,
him.
why not?
And he's like making fun of people for knowing rocket science, and then something gets shot on his screen, and the teacher's like, well, Bernard, if you can't dish it out, don't do anything. And I'm like, now there is a moment like this in the book. Bernard is making fun of another person in their launchy group, a little kid. I'm not remembering the name of him. Ankit, do you remember?
Nope.
Okay. Well, he's making fun of this other kid, and Ender he's making fun of the way he walks because of his butt, basically. And he's like, you walk with a big butt, and you shake your butt when you walk. And then Ender hacks in, and as Bernard writes for everyone to see this big message that I like butts, Bernard, or something like that. And Bernard gets like really embarrassed about it, and it helps Ender break into the friendship. It's one of the few actions that Ender takes to actually make a friend.
Right, because someone is like, "Oh, thanks," and like then later they're like, "All right, how did you do it? How'd you hack the code? How'd you break into the system?" Mm-hmm. And Ender's just like, "I don't know what you're talking about. I didn't do anything."
Yeah, exactly. And then we cut to people sitting at lunch with Ender because now they're friends with Ender because that happened quick, I guess.
Yeah, I don't know. My issue with it earlier, like with him saying like, all right, we should get some sleep, was like, all right, like, hold on. He gets respect now because he talked out of turn. And then like suddenly everyone is friends with him just because he sent a message. Like, all right, fine. Like, whatever. We had to move the story along. Fine. We're moving the story along.
We cut to Ender using his tablet to play a game. Now, this game is the Dreamland game. He plays it a lot in the book. He plays it 2 times in the film. He plays it once in the film, and then it's referenced a bunch of times in the film. So this is the only time he plays it. And he's a mouse in Dreamland. I thought he was a human in the book, but because it was supposed to be like a digital version of his character. But he's a mouse, and then Anderson and Graf are watching him play the dream game. Graf used the dream game. Graf doesn't like the dream game. He says it's terrible. We shouldn't use it. But Graf uses the dream game just as much as Anderson used it. So I'm very confused on why Graf is against the dream game.
Graf just doesn't like it because he can't control it.
No, I get that. But in the book, he was for it. In the film, he's against it. He's not against the dream game until later.
Yeah.
So
I thought you meant film version.
So then he's losing again and again in the dream game. A giant has 2 cups, and both of them are, one's poison, one's not, and he has to drink one, and he'll die if he drinks the wrong one. Then Eli comes down to watch him play the game, and I'm like, no one watches Ender play the game except for Graf and Anderson. But okay, whatever. And then Ender, as the mouse, launches into the giant's eye and kills him because it's an unfair game.
Death to the giant. Death to
Death
the
to the
giant.
giant. And Allies like, whoa, you didn't have to kill him. And he was like, no, I did. That was the only way to win. And I'm like, okay, all right.
Eli just has that look on his face like, damn, man, you messed up.
Yeah, like, right? So the thing is, in the book, he does beat the giant that way. That is how he beat the giant. And he continues on to another part of the story that's even harder for him to get through. So there's a lot more to the Dreamland game than just the giant.
Mm-hmm.
He then, somebody comes in and forces him to leave his launchy group and join the Salamander Army. Not Salamander, Salamander Army. Who is led by?
Like Salamander.
Salamander? Okay.
Salamander.
He's led by Bonzo the Clown. No, I'm just kidding. His name is Bonzo. They even spell it out in the... Yeah, it's
Wait,
B-O-N-S-O.
who's Bonzo the Clown? Why do I know that reference?
It's like a famous clown of circus. Like, he's one of the most famous clowns, I think. Bonzo the Clown, yeah. It does. I even know the name, but I don't remember what it's from.
Is that... Have you seen Modern Family?
No.
Okay, never mind. Then this is going to go over your head.
Clips.
Listeners, is that the name, if one of you has seen Modern Family, because I'm blanking, but is that the name of the clown that Cam dresses up as? Or is that not Bonzo and it's just something similar to Bonzo?
Well, Bonzo's like a famous clown name, so...
Well, I know that. I'm asking this specific one, Steven.
Fair. So, Ali then says Salam Alaikum to him, which I'm like, In the book, he does say salam to him, not just salam, doesn't say the full thing, and kisses him on the cheek. Now, in this world, something that's not explained in the film at all, in this world, religion is really suppressed. Now, both of Ender's parents were actually very religious in two different religions. I think his dad came from like an 8-person child family, and his mom came from a really big family as well, being Catholic.
Yeah.
And I think his father's restorative Christian and his mother's Catholic. I think that was the religions they both are, or something like that.
Sure, they were both Christians.
The different denominations of Christianity, yes. But there is this idea that these religions are kind of frowned upon in this new society, in this future society that's not really touched on in the film, as well as this idea that something that's not really explained. When you have a kid past 2, you get taxed more. So you get tariffed and you will have no money, basically. It reminds me a lot of the one child Chinese policy that was enacted in China, I think in the 90s.
That sounds right. It was recently disbanded.
Was it recently? I thought it was disbanded in the 2000s, but the fact that it was recently disbanded is crazy.
I thought it was disbanded in the 2010s.
That might sound right.
Yeah.
So that's something about this world that we should just be aware of. 1980s, of course, the future could have been like this. Nobody knew. So
they had hopes for the future back in the 80s. They had ideas. We were going to have flying cars. We were going to have hoverboards. We were going to have food that was just like dehydrated food. You'd pop it into a microwave and bang, just like that, like in 30 seconds, it's a fully well-baked meal. They had plans. They had hopes. They had dreams. That's it.
We show up at the Salamander Army and everyone's like, who's the launchy here? And it's like, oh no. And Petra and Dink are there and they're like, hi. And he's like, hi. And all of a sudden Bonzo shows up. And I literally had to pause the film because I'm like, he is so short. Oh my gosh, he is so short.
Yeah, did you not know that he was short?
Well, in the book, he's supposed to be super tall.
Well, I mean, yeah, but you can't deny that Moses did a fantastic job.
I don't know. I like him as a lot of the things kind of came down to, I don't think he could have played that. I think physically, he didn't fit the role.
Physically, he technically didn't, but if you're only casting based on that, then like what the hell? Like he embodied the role.
We'll talk about moments where I don't think it hit well.
Where?
But there were a lot of moments on good. I
Well,
don't
I
think he
mean,
did
like,
a good
okay,
job.
but here's the thing. Did you hate the character?
No. Yeah.
You
Well,
didn't
I hate
you didn't
I
hate
hate
him.
I hate the character anyway. Yeah.
Great. No. Ignoring the book, did you just dislike the character?
Yeah.
Then he succeeded in his job. It's not his fault if the writing is different or if something else doesn't work. But if you didn't like the character, you're not supposed to like the character in the book. You didn't like the character in the film. He did his job as an actor and succeeded. So you can't blame him.
We'll get there. So we meet Petra and Dink, and Petra's
I'm
like,
staying on this
I'm gonna
because
go train you. We'll talk about this later. I'm gonna go train you. But the thing that really bothered me about this whole salamander army thing is, so there's a lot of things that he was doing in the battle room that Ender was doing in the battle room to kind of get the attention of other people. And one of the people got the attention of was Dink. And Dink is the one who asked for Ender. But in this version, he didn't ask for Ender at all. So I don't understand. So Ender and Petra then go to the battle room, and she shows him sharpshooting skills. And it's just like in the book. He trains with her.
Yeah.
And it's great. I was like, half of me was like, because they're the same height, I was like, oh, they're gonna do a love relationship between these two characters because it's Hollywood, isn't it? I was very worried about it. I was very like,
we'll talk about that more in like when we go over like author's notes and things like that.
Yeah, I was watching it. I was like, oh no, they're gonna make a love relationship between these two characters, aren't they?
Yeah.
I was like, because you know what it reminded me of, that moment. I know it's a terrible comparison, and you're gonna hate me for this.
I hate you many times, so like, Ash just a constant. It's just, is it gonna spike or not?
Annabeth and Percy from the Percy Jackson films, when they were training, and it's like, oh look, they're gonna fall in love, aren't they?
That was just bad writing, dude.
No, but that's what I thought was gonna happen, because some of the writing hasn't been that good, and I was like, oh no.
Oh, okay.
Oh no. I saw bad writing on the wall and was worried about it.
Fair.
So we cut back to Dink and Bonzo playing a game, trying to like remake their blasters as fast as possible, and I was like, well, that's cool.
Sure.
Bonzo and Dink aren't really friends, but sure. So Bonzo then goes, where were you? And he's like, he gets mad at him because he was training, and he's like, no more training with her. I don't want you doing anything. And he's like, how can you trade me if I'm not good?
Yeah.
And Bonzo's like, ugh. And he's like, can we talk privately, sir? Now, something that's not explained in the film, but it's in the book, is if you ask your commander, because Bonzo is the commander of the Salamander Army, to talk privately, they have to talk to you privately.
Mm-hmm.
No matter what situation, they have to talk to you. It's a rule.
Yeah, they have to grant the privacy right.
So Bonzo and him are talking, and this is where I have a little bit of the issue, because Bonzo is so short and Ender's so much taller than him.
Yeah.
I don't feel like Ender is, maybe this was the bad writing, but I didn't feel like Ender was scared of Bonzo. There's a innate fear Ender had of Bonzo because of how big he was compared to him. It just felt
but I think that issue comes with the writing because they haven't set up Bonzo. Because keep in mind, in the book, all of this happens, like Bonzo blowing up at him afterwards. Mm-hmm. Like it happens after a couple weeks.
That's true.
Ender being there. So we've had time to set up Bonzo as, this terrible person who doesn't like him, blah, 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 blah. Whereas in the film, it's literally been like 3 minutes. We got introduced to him and now he's getting yelled at. So like that comes down to the writing. Because at the end, like I said, you still hated the character. The actor did his job.
Yeah, I just think that it was badly put
It was badly
like, you know,
executed because of the writing, not because of the stature of the actor. That's what I'm saying.
I'm not complaining that he's short. I'm just
I
saying
mean,
that
it sounds like you are, and I take offense to this as a short person.
yeah, but I know how to make you feel bigger than the other people on stage. I've got you to feel bigger than everyone else on stage.
I mean, like, look, that's a different issue, Steven.
I also felt like the directing
Because
was bad.
no, but that's a different issue. Because your initial thing was he's short, it didn't work. And if you're saying that the reason it didn't work is because he's short, that's where you're wrong.
No, I'm not saying it
You can
didn't
still
work.
say that, but that was your original argument, is all that I'm
Fine.
saying.
Fine. No, but my initial feeling of it was, oh my gosh, he's too short to play the character. And then the writing and the directing compounded on itself.
Sure. But that's because you read the book. Take it out, you haven't read the book. Do you still hate this character?
I just don't think it was done well from a writing perspective.
It wasn't done well. I will give you it wasn't done well, because I agreed that it wasn't done well.
So Bonzo's like, I want to trade you even more now. And Wiggins says, well, let me get good so you can trade me. and Bonzo's like, fine, I'll and he's like, he tells Bonzo what to say. He tells Bonzo how he can go back on what he said and everything. Bonzo is a terrible commander in the book. I wish they could show more of his terrible command stuff in the film, but they don't have time for it, I guess.
And that's what I'm saying. Like, if they had the time. But like, this is one of those things that if they added even just 1 or 2 scenes before you had Bonzo blowing up, you wouldn't have had this issue, because you would have understood how bad of a commander he actually is.
Yeah. So Bonzo then the next day, he says, Wiggin, I've changed my mind. You could trade and train and whatever, but so I can trade you as soon as possible. He also threatens Ender on the way out of that conversation, and it's fine. And he's like, we're going to go to war, everyone. And all the Salamanders are chanting on the way to battle the leopards. And sure. I was like, oh, okay, cool. First battle. It's the first battle we're going to see. We're going to see many battles in this movie, right, Ankit? Right?
So we get to the battle.
Yeah, okay. So Ender's orders are, you will stay here and you will watch, and then you will slowly go through the gate, but you won't do anything. Which he has to follow because it's his commander. It literally says that in the book. He follows it to a T. He doesn't do anything in the first game he's ever in. Now in the second game he's in, but they combined them. They combined his first game, his second game, and his third game.
They combined all the games,
basically. So Petra banged her head, and because she got knocked away when Dink got frozen, and Ender runs in to save her and saves her, and together they use each other's feet to kill the rest of the enemy, which I was like, oh, well, that's cool. But Ender didn't need anybody else to kill the rest of the enemy in the book. He just, because he went in with his legs first, he was able to just kill everyone. Yeah. No one expected it. So they kind of de-escalated the greatness of Ender then. Do you know what I mean?
They made him dependent when literally he just kind of launches himself and he's like, all right, cool. They're just not focused on me. Bye, everyone. I'm going to go win the game.
So, and then Bonzo is mad they won, but because of his Spanish pride. And that's a thing they don't really explain in the film. He has this really big Spanish for pride.
Yeah.
So, and that is, I think we'll cut the first episode. So beautiful. Ender has won his first battle game. He disregarded his commander Bozo, and he is now loved by everyone else but Bonzo, because Bonzo has this Spanish pride thing. You can't let Ender be a winner.
He's just salty. Also, it's not explicitly stated in the it's not stated in the film, but keep in mind, at this point, ladies and gentlemen, in the book, Ender is 6.
Oh yeah, Ender is also exactly.
Ender
That's
is
the other
6.
issue He's 6 in the book at
So,
this
like,
point,
it's
and he's
right. Like he's still 6 in the book. I don't think he's even turned 7 yet. But at youngest, he is 7. But I'm pretty sure he's still 6 in the book.
he's the
So
youngest launchy to ever join an army.
exactly. So like, and then he's showing up the commander of this army, who I believe is like 11, 12, maybe.
Bonzo, I think, is 13 when we first meet him. No, because 13 is when you leave. I think you're right. He's probably like 11 or 12.
I think he's 11 or 12. Maybe he's slightly younger, but like he is at least 3 to 4 years older than Ender. So at minimum, he's 9 or 10.
The thing
right?
is about Battle School, which I think kind of gets convoluted a bit. The ages of the people in Battle School are supposed to be from the ranges of 6 to 13.
Mhm.
Usually people start Battle School around the age of 8 or 10. Ender's supposed to be the youngest in his launchy group, and then he's again the youngest in the Salamander army. And we'll get there, but he is the youngest again and again and again in the rest of his things.
He's consistently the youngest. And so like that's something to just keep in mind, because like it's hard to see in the film because they have condensed the time frame. So, yeah.
One actor. Who's very tall. Who's a very tall kid.
He's a tall, like 11-year-old.
Yeah, I would say he's 11. He's very tall for an 11-year-old. I kind of. He's probably like 5'5", but in the way they filmed it, he does seem really tall, doesn't he?
He just seems really tall. He's probably like my height, but also like a 5'5" 11-year-old is like still tall.
No, it's a tall 11-year-old. Hey, no, there were kids that I was teaching in middle school who were my height.
Dude, there are kids that like I've taught before that are my height, and I'm like, oh, like you're in middle school, and they're like, nah, I'm in 4th grade, and I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna go cry in a corner. Like,
well, I'm 6'1", so if a kid's my height in middle school, I'm like, oh crap, you're gonna be tall.
It's like you are going to have back problems potentially in the future.
Well, one kid walked through my door once and went, "The world's not built for me. I'm too tall for this." And I just laughed.
My favorite.
I was like, go to the UK where nothing's built for tall people.
Oh yeah, no, I've
I've
always been the short one, and so like my friends would like just pull pranks on me, but then also like I would be the only one that could like squeeze into tiny places to like grab things.
Mm-hmm.
So
cool.
Yeah.
So that is the end of our first episode of Ender's Game. We hope you join us next week for the second episode and the finale of Ender's Game. And then we'll be moving on to our next project.
We'll announce that next week, but thanks for listening, everyone. We'll see you next week. Bye.
Bye, y'all.
Hello, and thank you so much for listening to this episode of Flip the Scripts. Flip the Scripts is created, hosted, and produced by Ankit Madhira and Stephen Nieman. Our editor is Sebastian Hollich. The art is by Kshitija Madhira, and the music is by Sebastian Hollich. If you like the video, you can click to listen to the next part, or if it's not out yet, you can find one of our previous episodes.
Or if you want to check out some of our other content, here's a fun video from another one of our shows.
Don't forget to subscribe, hit that like button, comment, and hit that bell icon to get notified of all of our content when it releases.
Subscribe to our Patreon if you want bonus content.
Links to all of our social media and Patreon are in the episode description down below.
Thank you for supporting our content. Come back next week for more shenanigans from Co-op Forge.
New episodes for Flip the Scripts release every Friday, Seattle Across the Pond every other Thursday, and post finale every Wednesday. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you soon.
Bye now.